I read 50 books in the year 2024, and here are the top 10 books that I would recommend to you, ones that stood out to me, and some that I consider the best books, 5 out of 5. So here they are. Honestly, 2024, there were a lot of misses for me in terms of books. I think that's all due to Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, because this series, just as a whole, it took a lot of time for me to finish, but it was just so good to me. 2 books that I do want to call out that stood out that were 5 out of 5 stars were Queen of Shadows and the last book, Kingdom of Ash. I still feel like I am recovering from reading this series, but if you're not familiar with Throne of Glass, we are following an assassin that has been enslaved. She is freed by the king to join a competition for her to temporarily claim her freedom. Honestly, I feel like describing it like that doesn't even do the series any justice, because the story just transforms from there. I don't want to give you too much, but just trust me on this. The way that it was written, you just fall in love with the characters. All of the characters are just so complex. It's really easy to get attached to them. And the author's ability to just write the scenes so vividly that you're truly immersed in the story is just like one of a kind. I really just fell in love with the series. I love it so much that I feel like I'm chasing this feeling again. I don't think I'll have it back. The next book that stood out to me is Love Radio by Ebony Liddell. I love this book, and honestly, for a young adult romance, I did not expect to love this book as much as I did. The reason why I love this book so much is because they did not piss me off. Like, I wasn't annoyed by the immaturity of the characters. You know how in young adult romances, you're just like, why am I expecting so much from young adults? But this book just showed me, yeah, I can expect a lot from young adults, because they can critically think and work through some of their issues in a way that is healthy. And I really appreciated that. We're following a young man named Prince. He is a host on a radio show where he gives advice on love, advice on relationships. And the other character, Danny, she is an aspiring author. I just really appreciated how they handled conflicts. I think that the story is good. It's just a really refreshing read for me. If you like YA, I would definitely recommend this for you. Next is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I wouldn't recommend this to you if you don't like magical realism, and I have another book on this list right after that also has magical realism. On the other hand, I enjoy magical realism. We're following a girl named Clementine, and she recently inherits her aunt's apartment. This apartment happens to be magical. It allows her to travel back in time 7 years past, where she meets a man that she sparks a connection with. I feel like this book is timeless in a way where I could come back to it in the future and read it, and if I'm in a different stage or different phase in my life, it's going to hit different. I feel like I resonated with it a lot. I do believe in everything happens for a reason, timing matters in love and relationship. I enjoyed it. The next book I told you is another book that has magical realism, and this is Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I feel like this is silly for me to like it, because there's a common theme when it comes to stories that have magical realism, because you know the outcome, you know the lesson that you're supposed to receive from it. But I think the reason why I enjoy it is because it allows me to reflect. It allows me to ask hard questions, a lot of the shoulda, coulda, woulda questions, and I think, for me personally, I think like that sometimes. And, reading it in a book, it helps you shape the perspective a little bit, especially the character in this book, in the Midnight Library. She starts out the story as someone that is depressed, suicidal. She has a really hard relationship with her brother, and I just feel like the lessons that she learns along the way are really important. The 5th book on this list is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I'll be honest, I didn't rate this like a 5 out of 5. I know a lot of people really love this book. I enjoyed it a lot. The town that our main character is living in is in a town called Blunder. The town has been cursed by a mist, and this mist infects people, it degenerates people, sometimes it causes death. So our main character works together with other characters that she meets along the way in lifting the curse. It is a gothic fantasy novel. I feel like I haven't read anything like this. I don't really I don't really lean towards these kinds of fantasy novels, but it kept me intrigued. The female main character is someone that's very shy, someone that's very reserved, whereas her love interest in the story is someone that is very direct, someone that people fear, someone that has authority. So I thought that dynamic is really fun to read, but nonetheless, I'm also reading the second book now, and I'm still really enjoying it. Now, please don't judge me with this next book. I hope that your opinions don't change on what you think of me, even though, do I care what you think? No, these are the books that I like, and you'll learn that I like a spectrum of different types of books. And this book is Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. It is what it is, you know, I like what I like. But what I will say is, don't read this if you don't like sociopathic characters. Don't read this if you don't want the male main characters in the books that you read to be obsessive, possessive, jealous, and extremely seductive. This is a dark romance novel, so just imagine what could potentially happen based off of the description that I just gave you. The author tries to balance out the characters' morals from their actions. They really do try, but the scenes that are dark are dark. Okay, just remember that. The dark scenes that are dark, but I enjoyed it. I'll leave it at that. Our seventh book on this list is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. We are completely switching gears here from dark romance to YA fantasy. For the most part, I could predict what was happening, but the reason why I enjoyed this book is because of the plot. The main character is clever, she's witty, she's funny, and she lives in a world where powers exist. And if someone doesn't have any powers, they are banished from the kingdom, or they're just harming the purity of the kingdom and of the elites. It just so happens that our main character, she actually does not possess any power. She's just been lying her whole life. And it just so happens that her love interest in this scenario is someone from the royal family. And it is the slowest of burn. I mean, the tension, the angst, it's there. If this is something that you like, it's there for you. I would recommend this if you like YA fantasy, romantasy type of books. Okay, now this next book is called Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I have only read one other book from Ali Hazelwood, and that is Love Hypothesis. I really am not big on fake dating tropes because I need it to be dire. Like, I need it to be life or death. I need it to be an absolute necessity for a fake dating situation to actually take place. But Bride by Ali Hazelwood, essentially it's more of like an arranged marriage between a vampire and a werewolf. Vampires and werewolves, they've had histories and histories of conflict amongst those two kinds, and in order to potentially resolve the conflict, their families arranged for the werewolf and the vampire to be married. It's funny. I remember just laughing. I remember thinking that, oh my gosh, they are flirting so well with each other. I like their chemistry. There are some parts where I'm like, this is borderline weird. I could have gone with not having to read that part, but hey, whatever. I ended up enjoying the whole book. Please don't judge me. Our ninth book on this list is This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. This is the second book in the Skyland series. This whole series features women who are in their 40s. They're more mature. They've already lived a life. They've already had kids, marriage, whatever. So it's good for you to read if you want a more mature romance. In this particular book, we are following two characters who have been divorced and they have their own kids. I appreciated this book because it really highlights the fact that you have to love yourself first. Reading about the love story of the two main characters in this book, it just felt really reassuring, comforting. It almost felt like proper guidance. So I think that's really the main reason why I love this book. It was just healthy, and I appreciated the reminder and the lesson that came from reading this book. Last and not least, number 10, for my book recommendations is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I feel like all of the books that I recommended, they are fairly popular and people have already spoken about it, but if you haven't heard it enough, or if you needed to hear it from a different tone, different voice, different perspective, maybe that's why I'm sharing it. But Funny Story by Emily Henry is not my favorite book of hers, but I really enjoyed this. The two main characters that we're following, they have recently experienced a tough breakup. They are roommates, and you can really tell the care and thought that Emily Henry put into these two characters. But what really stood out to me from this book is, I mean, this is just a common thing about Emily Henry and why I love her as an author. It's just, I love how she writes emotion, how she writes how people process their emotion, show their emotion, just like their general feelings. It always feels so tangible when you read how Emily Henry writes it. It's just every single time it freaking hits, man. Or it just helps me connect to the characters so much more. And that's why I love this book. And also, really, obviously, banter. I feel like banter is a common theme in all of these books that I recommended because a good dialogue is important. Would you agree? Yes, okay. Shoot, my camera is dying and I have some honorable mentions that I actually want to mention to you today. These books, they are either part of a series where I could see the potential that it has, but the first book, it didn't, really hit the mark for me, or I enjoyed reading it, but I have some unresolved feelings about it. I don't know, just honorable mentions. The first one is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is a romance novel about a witch and a witch hunter. So just imagine these two people are supposed to hate each other, but they kind of like each other. The witch is hunted by the witch hunter. What could go wrong? I liked it, but I feel like I need to continue on in this series for me to actually love it. I thought it was worth mentioning to you. Next is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This is the first book that I ever read of Sally Rooney's, and I feel like I have conflicting feelings about it, maybe because it hits close to home, or the characters are just not likable to me. It feels too real. I just have a lot of mixed emotions about it, and if that was the intention by the author on how I'm supposed to be feeling with this book, then I guess it did its thing. The next book is The Idea of You by Robin Lee. I only read this book because, of course, I found out that they were coming out with a movie starring Anne Hathaway, and I didn't watch the movie. I read the book first before I watched the movie, and I enjoyed this book a lot. I know some people are like, this is kind of a weird book. Like, if you are not an age gap type of person, but I really enjoyed the book nonetheless. Lastly, the book that I want to mention to you is So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole. I really love the book for the setting because this is a young adult fantasy that is set in a Jamaican inspired island. I mean, I don't typically, experience that. I feel like the fantasy novels that I read is usually cold or medieval, or I just picture somewhere in Scotland or Europe or, something like that. Not really anywhere tropical. And I really appreciated that. The magic system is interesting. Basically, the state and the safety of this island all comes down to the 17-year-old that has been blessed with divine power from her ancestors. Her and her sister kind of have to save this whole island. They learn more about their history, and it ends in a cliffhanger. After I read it, I was like, wait, there's gotta be more. There's gotta be more. So I think that's why I didn't really rate this high, but I have a lot of hope. I wouldn't say expectation, but I'm just really looking forward to seeing where the story goes from this author, because there's just so much potential in this story. Other than that, that is it. I hope that I was able to share interesting books for you. If these are some of the books that you have read already, please let me know down below on what you thought. If you have books that you would like for me to read next year, I would be so open to your suggestions. I feel like this video is a good description on my taste in books. Hopefully it kind of gives you a clearer picture so you can recommend some books my way. But thank you so much for watching. Let me know what other types of videos you'd like to see more from me. Hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure that you hit the notification bell as well so you don't miss another video from me. Thank you so much. Bye.